I'm Jack Briglio of Flip, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to a special edition of the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book creators and supporters. It's May 20th, 2021. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. These podcasts are published to celebrate the exhibitors of this year's virtual edition of the Toronto Comic Arts Festival. TCAF is an annual event gathering comic book creators from around the world to promote broad and diverse voices towards the betterment of the medium of comics through panels, keynote exclusives, and just basically enjoying the fun of comics. On this episode, I chat with Jack Briglio about Flip Volume 2 and more at TCAF 2021. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, and it's also available on the True North Country Comics channel on YouTube. I invite you to like and subscribe. Based in Ottawa, Jack is a writer of the Eisner-nominated fantasy adventure series Growing Up Enchanted, published by Marcosia in 2010 and 2011. Previously, Jack also worked on Scooby-Doo and the Legion of Superheroes in the 31st Century for DC Comics. For IDW, The Adventures of Digger and Friends, Sesame Street Comics for Sesame Street Workshop, and Scarlet, Riverdale's autistic teen for Archie Comics. Currently, Jack is working on a new graphic novel, Thunderboom, for Kids Can Press. Dominion Jack with Hugh Rookwood, a serial in Joe Shuster-nominated Canadian superhero anthology series, True Patriot Presents at Chapter House Publishing. Take Two, a crime fantasy serial for Comic Scene, award-winning digital anthology magazine Aces Weekly, and editor and contributor to a new speculative fiction anthology of real-world what-ifs called Flip. Volume 2 is now out for Marcosia Publishing. And so, without further ado, here's my chat with Jack Briglio about Flip Volume 2 and more at TCAF 2021. So, Jack Briglio, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. What I normally do to start off the interview is ask the creator about their first comic book. So I'm wondering if you remember, what was the first comic book that you read?
Okay, so it's a long time ago for me. So I've got to really go into the catacombs of the back of my head here to see what my first one's. It's definitely a DC book, because DC comics were the first comics that I read. And where I got them was, I remember my sister bringing me to a convenience store near where we live. So I'm pretty sure the first book I ever read was a All-Star Comics. The 70s version, the 70s revival. So the JSA, Justice Society of America. I remember Wildcat, Huntress, and Star Spangled Kid on the cover.
Wow.
I think that one's one of my first, because all around the same time I discovered that Super Team, which I loved, and the Flash, and the Legion of Superheroes. So yeah, those. But that one, that cover I can still remember pretty vividly. I think it was in the early 70s, in the numbering or something. 71 maybe.
Roy Thomas doing that or something, maybe.
Was it Roy Thomas? Oh, I think this was. I think it was Jerry. I want to say Jerry Conway.
Oh, okay.
I think Joe Staton definitely doing the art. But yeah,
cool, that's neat.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah.
So, who inspires you today? Who are you reading today these days?
Who am I reading today? Writers that are doing different things that really impress me. I think at the top of the list for me would be Matt Kint. Almost everything that he's done, I really enjoy. But I'll focus in on Mind I want to say mind management. It's mind MGMT, but I don't know. I've never heard it out loud, so I'm, I'm going to say mind management. But like a psychic spy thriller, but it's very deep and just so interesting, and I love his stuff. Like I pick up most of his things. So I would say Matt is at the top of the list.
Okay.
There are other guys. I mean, like Tom King. I read a lot of Tom King. I really enjoy most of the things that he's putting out these days. But Matt would be the one.
Super. Cool. Yeah. Good stuff. So we're here talking in the context of the Toronto Comic Arts Festival. So with that in mind, I'm wondering if you have any favorite convention or festival moments that you like to share.
I think I go back to, like, I've been to a couple of TCAFs in person, not virtually like this one, but and they were great shows. But I've gone to a number of New York Comic Cons. Several in the States, Columbus, Ohio, even in Ann Arbor. But I think I'd go with a memory I have of a Toronto Fan Expo Toronto con that I went to, and actually, I've even gone to a couple of San Diego Comic Cons.
That's cool.
I've been to a couple of, but this Fan Expo in Toronto a bunch of years back that I want to harken back to is because that was the one where I guess True Patriot, the Canadian superhero anthology that Jay Torres and I and a whole bunch of us got together to pull together. That's where the origin of that series was born, and it was just a bunch of us talking because we were all tabled together. So Jay and I think Jay Bowen was with us. So was Jay Stevens, and the great Darwin Cook was there too. And we just had a great conversation about comics, and we talked about how talked about Canadiana and superheroes, and from that conversation, that's where we got the will to, hey, let's go ahead and try to do some Canadian superhero comics. So that one comes to mind as a pretty great memory. Just a great conversation amongst all of us. So it was a lot of fun. Sure.
That was a great result too. I've got both volumes here sitting on my bookshelf. That was a great work of art, that's for sure. Terrific.
Excellent.
Good stuff. So let's talk about what you're exhibiting at TCAF. I wonder if you tell me a bit about the book and maybe the origin.
Okay. So I've got a few books that I'm exhibiting there. I've got my Growing Up Enchanted books, an all ages fantasy adventure series that I did years ago. So they're available for kids of all ages. I want to pick that up. But because of the pandemic, I guess Flip Volume 2 is the one that's really debuting at TCAF. It came out. We talked about it a while back on your show. But this is really like the first show to really exhibit it, and I'm exhibiting it virtually. I mean, it's been out for a bit, but this is the first one where I've had a chance to being able to promote it at a spot at a festival like this one. So that it's for those that aren't familiar with Flip, it's an anthology series that I've edited with. Brought in a bunch of creators, and I've actually contributed a few of the stories as well. It's a what if else worlds kind of anthology, so real world what ifs, and just a lot of different takes and interesting spins on situations that I hope piques the interest of people. It's it retails for I think $23, and just a lot of great stories, like ranging from horror or dark comedy to humor to more dramatic serious pieces as well. So there's that, and then the other thing I'm actually making available is Dominion Jack, my character
right,
from True
yeah.
Patriot. I've got a digital download of all the Dominion Jack material from the True Patriot trades, as well as from the stories that were serialized in True Patriot Presents. So yeah, I've got that available as well, and that's digital, so you can buy that and not have to pay shipping, the shipping cost of TCAF. It'll be available after you buy it. But
there you go.
yeah, I just love this online marketplace idea with TCAF. I think I'd like to think that a lot of folks will see that as, what other place can you have a spot where you can go and order all these great indie books all across the place and pay, one shipping price and have it sent to you. I mean, there's not many opportunities for that. So I think it's a wonderful marketplace, and I hope everybody checks out my booth, my virtual booth there, and checks out Flip, and checks out some of the other books on there too.
Yeah. Sounds good. Now, you mentioned anthology, Flip being that, and certainly as a writer, you work with a variety of different artists. I'm wondering if you have a certain process that you implement when you're working with one artist versus another. How does that happen?
I mean, if with artists that I'm more comfortable with, I think that I know, I'm familiar, we know each other. It's definitely a lot more collaborative at the beginning. And not to say that that it's not in all cases, but in that case, I can go up and start talking to an artist I know and say, hey, I want to do a story about this, and start the ideas bouncing around that way. And then there are it varies for me. There are those cases, and then there are other cases where I have a story in mind. I may have had a story I've already scripted, and I then approach an artist to see if they're interested in working with me. And even that way, it's not like, even if it's already scripted, it's not a thou shalt follow my instructions to a T, that sort of thing. It's like, take a read. Let's talk about it afterwards. Bounce off some ideas, see how we can improve it, enhance it, make it not just me, but make it something that's something from both of us. So I think that's the most important thing about doing comics, because I find too many times it's and I get this from people outside of comics who want to do comics. They think they can write their thing and then hire an artist to do everything exactly as they said. It doesn't exactly work that way. If you really want your story to sing, make the artist that you decide to work with your collaborator, your partner, not a hired hand. So
that's good. Good. So that leads me to my next question. Typically at conventions and trade shows, you'll get the person who might come up and say, hey, I want to make my own comic book. What advice would you have? I mean, what would you tell them to one thing to keep in mind, let's say, when they're creating their comic book?
Just keep doing it. When I grew up wanting to do comics, I mean, the only way I could do them was draw badly. I did them out of paper and try to do my own comics that way, right? And that was the only way, because it was before computers and online and all that groovy stuff that's available now. Now there's so many options for kids and young people to learn the craft. You could. So I would just tell them, just keep writing, keep writing and drawing, keep collaborating, keep doing it. You're just going to get better and better and better. So don't waste your time. If that's something you love to do, just keep at it, and you'll improve. Because you don't have to worry. If we want to do a comic, we have to worry about printing. You can do one of your own things if you want to draw it and write it, draw it, letter it, and do it once yourself. But then you have to pay for printing.
Right.
You don't have to do that anymore. You can you can post it on a website, a webcomic. There's so many different spots where your stories can land. And at a young age, you're just looking to improve your craft and just get better and better and better and get to a point where that, hey, I can do this for a living now. And that's when you seek out, those avenues. But I that's what I tell anyone who asks me. I mean, just do,
Right.
do it.
No.
You've got so many things. It's so easy, so much easier to do. I mean, the market's a lot bigger now, but it is easier to do. So,
Right. Yeah, that's good advice for sure.
Yeah.
So you've talked about Flip and then the anthology. I'm wondering what's next for you. Is there anything you can talk about that's coming down the road for you?
Well, there are a couple of things that are recent things that I've been posting on my social media that have recently come out as well. I've done another serial for Aces Weekly, Return to Aces Weekly, and this one's a short a pandemic essay. I like to say I wanted to write a story about the pandemic, and it's called The New Normal, and it's with Steve Leger, and just a really the first story that appeared in issue 50, volume 50 of Aces Weekly, was just about it just talks about what. How the world changed, right? When COVID hit us last year, a little over a year ago. And in volume 51, we've got a sequel, and it's a little bit of a change of pace, but it continues where it leaves off, and it focuses on one of the kids in the first part of the story. He's dreaming. He's dreaming about how superheroes would handle this pandemic, it's coming out, I think, imminently, within the next week. I think that it'll be out on Aces Weekly. That's David Lloyd's digital magazine that you can subscribe to. So, love for everyone out there to check it out. Sure. As well, just finished a Kickstarter with Cloudscape Comics, where I wrote a short story for their latest anthology, Through the Labyrinths of the Mind. It's an anthology about mental health, and I wrote a story that was about dementia, and it was with artist Devin Taylor. Just a story. Very happy with the story. Not I wouldn't say a happy story, but at least I hope it's a hopeful story, but I think it's one of my best work, and Devin just blew it out of the park. It's amazing. We really happy with it. So I hope once that's available in the next, the Kickstarter was it's successful, and so it's happening. I believe it's coming out sometime in July. So once it becomes available, I will update my website for sure. And let everyone know how they can get copies of that if they didn't support the Kickstarter. So, yeah.
Sounds good.
So those are a couple of things.
That's a lot. Keeps you busy.
Current. Yeah, for sure.
That's good. So at conventions and festivals, it's also in addition to talking to people, it's about buying books. Now you mentioned a few places, but where do you recommend people go to buy your books? So if you go to my website, jackbriglio.com, all of my everything that has been published is available there. You can click on the tiles of each of the particular books, and there are links to ways you can order it. I mean, like the Flip books and the Grown Up Enchanted books, they were published with Marcosia, so they're available at Amazon or through a Chapters Indigo, all your various online bookstores. And some comic stores also support my work as well, so you can always check in with comic stores to see, especially ones in the local area here in Ottawa, like the Comic Book Shop, and see what they carry. If they don't have it, well, they know who I am, so they can get it. They'll be able to get copies for them. So So but online, if check my website, and if you have any difficulty getting any questions, there's a contact link there that just reach out, and I'm glad to help you find my book. So Very good.
No problem there.
Good stuff. Now, you mentioned your website as a place to go, but where can people find you on social media, find out more about your current and future work?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. And in all cases, just my name. No crazy acronyms or nicknames there. So just Twitter, Facebook, and actually just recently joined Instagram. So I'm on there as well. So all three of those spots available to talk on there as well. So yeah.
Very good. Well, Jack, those are all the questions I have, but I'm wondering if there's something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview.
I've got a lot more work along the way. I mentioned a couple of more projects, but there is more along the way. So just keep checking my website and my social media, because there's more news to come as some more news goes out in terms of some of these projects that are coming to bear. So one of the ones, like just for example, and I think I've mentioned it in a previous interview, as I have a book from Kids Can Press coming out, but now that's not coming out till 2023, early 2023. So I'm looking forward to talk about that when it gets a little closer. So just please feel free to reach out to me and just keep following me, and I'll be glad to keep everybody abreast in terms of new things that are coming out from me, and appreciate the support from folks out there.
Thanks to Jack for the chat. You can discover more about Jack on Twitter and Instagram at Jack Briglio, that's JackBriglio, and online at jackbriglio.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts, and please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at True North Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. And please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2021.